stop that supply of money. Stopping that supply of money means what? Reduce interest rate to the depositors. They will not find it very economically viable to keep money in banks. If you make fixed deposit interest rate payable to you 2% per annum, it does make sense. So people withdraw money, and the money supply goes out of the economy. What will they do? They will start buying instead. Better to buy instead. Real estate or any even consumer durable. Then the money supply after some maybe 1 or 2 months, every depositor's balances will keep coming down. In its place, he has started acquiring materials. After some time, he doesn't have money to buy more materials because he has exhausted. Then the materials are remaining constant in its volume, but no buyer.
Yes.
What happens now? The price of the materials falls. Now, this is one way of hitting or keeping low the inflation rate. What did they do?
Just reduce it.
Reduce interest. So, don't you think there is a relationship between interest rate and inflation rate?
Yes.
Now you understood. Very simple, you think?
Please come again, sir. I did not focus.
To begin with, what I said was that too much money chasing too few goods and services is called inflation. That means there is voluminous supply of money in the economy and not corresponding production and services happening. Therefore, too much money is there. People who want those production and services are willing to pay more and more to buy. So the prices of the commodities, which are falling short in volume from the volume of supply of money, makes the cost of the materials high. This is inflation. Now I want to reduce the inflation. That's the RBI target. What measures does RBI take to reduce inflation is the question. I said, go back from fundamentals. First of all, why did inflation take place? Because there was too much money. Where was it lying, that too much money? It's easy to say it is in the economy. It's a very abstract word. Where is economy? Number, address and telephone number and mobile number of economy. All this money which I am talking about in the economy is in white form. Of course, we are not discussing any other kind of money. It's lying in the form of deposits in banks. Nowhere else. Because it's all white and it can't be kept in the houses. It is lying in the banks in one form or the other with deposits. And thus deposit balances are so large that people have more money to draw and buy anything that they want. And they go bindas and then buy laptops and gadgets. So the prices will go up. Now, in order to curtail that, take the opposite step of ensuring that deposits are all withdrawn, so that the money supply in the economy has fallen. How do you motivate the fellows to withdraw money? See, you are doing a lot of banking, marketing to mobilize deposits. But now I am told that you should reduce the deposit. You can't instruct the banks to return all the money. Unless they withdraw, I can't force them to take back the money. But I should make situations in such a way that he will withdraw. How? Reduce interest rates on deposits.
Okay.
Now, hypothetically I say, make it, let us say, 2% per annum, fixed deposit interest rate, as it has happened in Australia and USA. Nobody keeps money in banks there.
Yeah.
Except for their credit card payments. They keep, and for them they don't understand savings bank, recurring deposit account, fixed deposit, no. The current account, the marginal current account, everything is consumed. It's a consumer society. And social welfare schemes are such that you don't need to save for future. Everything is insured, hospital, money, house, everything. That is an ideal state of economy. Good or bad, we are not discussing here. We are understanding economics, that's all. So the interest rates, the RBI says interest rates, interest rates should come down. Who will decide that interest rates should come down? Does RBI give a declaration that here all the banks should reduce interest rates? They can't, because it's a free economy. We still believe in capital economy and free economy, least controlled economy. So RBI control is not there, but interest rates should fall. How? I told you that sometimes some banks need money in order to maintain CDR. I told you that treasury bills, trading in treasury bills is one of the methods. You understood? You have noted down all that. Achha. I also told you that there is a second method of supplying money to the needy banks by way of lending. Now, while lending, RBI calls the shots with regard to interest rate, doesn't it? RBI doesn't say pay less interest rate for your own depositors. RBI cannot say that. But RBI can very well say, my interest rate is this, if you want, you borrow. And banks are in need of borrowing in order to maintain CDR. Now the banks, the RBI will lend money to the banks at very low interest rate. Now the banks, because of their competition, they can't borrow low and lend high. No. So they will also see that their depositors get also very low. So the rate at which the banks, RBI offers to borrow money from the banks and also offers to lend money to the bank, because RBI plays dual role when depending upon the supply of money. If there is too much of supply of money in the economy, RBI borrows because it mops up, it sponges out the money. How? By borrowing. Similarly, when there is too little money in the market, when the inflation rate is very, very low, which is also bad, because people are not buying production and services at all, because there is no money. Banks lend, RBI lends money to the banks, so that the bank can lend to the producers and service providers at cheaper rate. So the bank can lend loans at cheaper rate if RBI lends money to the banks at cheaper rate. The rate at which the RBI lends or borrows, as the case may be, is called bank rate. Bank rate does not mean a commercial bank's rate of deposits or fixed deposits. No. You understand, when you read in Economic Times tomorrow, bank rate, in fact you will see next week, because there is a credit policy coming on by the governor of RBI the next week, and everyone is looking at what will he do with regard to bank rate.
Are you alert now?
Bank rate is different from CRR. CRR
one has nothing to do with the other. We are only talking CRR is different. No, please give me some time. Let's not talk about CRR. Please let's be focused, because economics becomes very complicated if we try to answer several questions together. It has to be baby steps, building blocks. Then it becomes clear and easy. सरल से बात करना बहुत मुश्किल है. They are opposite words. सरल and मुश्किल, easy and difficult. Curb your enthusiasm to learn all at it immediately. What did I say? The RBI will therefore offer a low interest rate or high interest rate, depending on whether RBI wants more of money supply in the society, in the economy, or less. Banks borrow from RBI, and from that money they lend it to the manufacturers, businessmen. The rate at which the RBI is charging this loan to the commercial banks will determine the lending rate of the commercial banks. RBI indirectly controls the lending rate, therefore, and not directly, by regulating, stipulating its own rate of lending and borrowing, the commercial banks. The rate at which the RBI lends or borrows to commercial banks is called, in fact, not borrows, lends. The rate at which RBI lends to commercial banks is called bank rate. The word bank is RBI rate, RBI, not commercial banks. Is that okay? Now, having fixed something like 6% is my lending rate, the banks borrow at 6%, then they have to make up that 6% because the cost of funds for them. They have to lend that money at a higher rate so that they make a profit. How much higher rate? Each bank decides for itself. SBI can just put up 2% more than bank rate as its base rate because the sheer volume of business of SBI can afford to make profits even with 2% more than 6%. ICICI Bank, for example, or Yes Bank, for example, cannot afford to just charge 2% more than 6% to their lenders, to their borrowers, because of their size of economy. So, Yes Bank may have to charge their borrowers 0.5% more than what maybe SBI charges. There is a bit of competition. So, there exists a competition in lending rates among the commercial banks, depending upon their cost of funds, and their administrative charges, their fixed costs. That is why you find differential interest rates, including in home loans, for example, or vehicle loans. Each bank has a difference of 0.25, 0.75.
So in this home loan, the base repo rate, that's called...
Yeah, perfectly right. This rate of bank rate is also called repo rate. Repo is not exactly cash lending by the bank, RBI, but selling the instrument. I told you in the first instance, I told you one source of raising money from RBI is what? Purchasing the instruments, I said, and trading that instrument in among the banks. Called, what is that called? The market is called? Not intra, don't make mistakes. Yes,
Interbank.
INTER is INTER.
Interbank.
Interbank. Not intra, interbank. What did RBI do then? It sold TVs. It didn't lend money. It sold TVs. The purchase price of the TV, supposing the TV was sold by RBI for 100 rupees. RBI accepts to repurchase that instrument in case you need money. Today you have surplus money. You are not permitted to lend it, but you are supposed to maintain a CDR. So what is the only alternative? You want to find a buyer for this instrument, so you sell this instrument and collect money to regulate your CDR. There was nobody who was willing to buy. I am stuck with this instrument. At the same time I need very badly, otherwise my CDR will go for it. So I go back to my big brother. Big brother says, all right, I will buy it back. That is why RBI is called lender of the last resort. It buys back. At what rate? 100 rupees, 90 rupees, 110 rupees. Only three possibilities. Let us assume that RBI buys it back definitely at a higher rate. Let's say 107 rupees. Let us assume that it is a 1 year TB maturity. So a State Bank of India bought the instrument at 100 rupees. 1 year later, RBI, according to its contract of promise, buys it back at 107 rupees. What is the return on investment for SBA?
7.
That is called repo rate. Did you get me? Repo rate is just multiplied with the return on it is the difference between the buying and selling prices as a percentage of the investment. It is the difference between the buying and selling rates, not rates, prices of TBs expressed as percentage, annual percentage of buying price. That's the investment for the bank. This is too much theoretical, so immediately. Example. Same example you write. Bought TB, say some IOB, Indian Overseas Bank, bought TB at 100 rupees, rupees 100. And sold back at 102 rupees. Sold back to RBI. Sold back to RBI for 102. Even there in the first sentence, what did you say? IOB bought TB at Beda. For. The preposition is wrong. Not at. For. FOR. Strike the word at and write for. Because at is always a rate. But for is a price. Now did you read again? IOB bought TB for rupees 100 and sold back to RBI for rupees 102. That's the data. Now tell me the return.
2%.
2%.
I said what?
Percentage.
Annual percentage rate. What did I say? 3 months later I said.
3 months. Oh.
Factor everything. Don't be in a hurry at all. I told you it is just baby steps without ignoring any data provided. Hmm.
8%. Finance, profit. So we have to divide 12 by fraction. Does it make sense?
some little mathematics you have to apply. This is 2%. The 2% is for 3 months. I want to express it as per annum. You have multiplied it by 4. It is compound interest. Is it correct to multiply by 4? Because interest on interest will occur on one rotation. So it becomes 4, power 4. 360 divided by 90. Per annum is 360 days. 4 rotations have taken place. So the index should be 4. So 0.02 should be raised to power 4. How much is it? Approximately around 80%. Not exactly 80%, because if I multiply it by 4 also I get it as 8%. It will, and to express it as a compound interest, therefore it doesn't become 8, it becomes 8 point something. This rate is called repo rate. Is that okay?
Yeah.
This repo rate is changed from time to time according to the newspapers, so that this buying price alters depending upon whether RBI wants to attract lot of money into the bank, that is, it wants to mop up more money, then it will make repo attractive. So the banks will go on purchasing the repo and losing its surplus money. If the credit deposit ratio is much higher than required, that means the bank has got a lot of surplus with it. I want to withdraw the surplus because it is creating inflation in the market. By how do I attract that surplus? By offering better interest rate. So my repo will increase in order to reduce the inflation. Do you get the connectivity? Inflation rate will be reduced if there is less and less supply of money in the market. And to make it less and less supply, RBI sells more and more repo.
Yes.
And to sell more and more repo, it makes the return on repo attractive.
Yes. So it increases
That can be made attractive if it's 2 rupees is higher. Did you get me?
yeah.
This is the connectivity between repo rate and repo or repo. Nobody asked me what does it mean in English. Is it a verb? Everyone talks about repo. You should have the curiosity to know whether it is a verb. And if you open the dictionary, however big it is, you don't find it. It is an acronym, short form of repurchase option. O stands for option, REP is a short form for repurchase. Did you notice that the bank is repurchasing at 102 rupees? Why is it called option? Supposing Bank of Baroda offers to buy the same because of its problems at 103 rupees. Am I contract bound to sell it back only to RBI, which is offering me 2 rupees only? No. RBI says, if you want to sell it back, but I shall definitely buy if you sell. It is not that if I want, I will buy. No. RBI says I shall definitely buy, but selling is your option. Because 3 months later, you don't know the market rates. So the bank which has bought it with an option to sell it and earn 2 rupees may find that even the 2 rupees is too low and it may sell it to some other bank. That's the reason why it's called REP. This is when RBI wants to reduce the money supply, correct? But when the bank wants to supply more money, the inflation is very low, that's also bad. That very low economy is for what reason? Low inflation is for what reason? Very low volume of money. People have no money to buy even vegetables. That's also bad. Therefore, RBI says, this time I make my doors open for buying TVs. I now offer to buy because money supply is very low and I will give you money.
Okay.
Therefore, I will buy the instrument.
Yes.
And again, I will sell it back if you want. Higher rate or lower rate?
Sell it back at a later date.
Higher.
Answer only that question.
Higher rate.
Higher rate. Is it attractive for a commercial bank to buy it like that?
Lower rate. So that they will give money to people to.
Return for the IOB, it has sold for 100 rupees,
Okay.
and to repurchase it, RBI says, give me only 98 rupees. I will sell it back.
Lower.
Don't you think there is a return?
Yes.
Everything we learnt in repo, reverse. Okay, understand that, yeah. It's simple, arithmetic in schools. ಹೇಗೆ ನೋಡಿ ನಾವು in the pursuit of so-called higher education, we lose fundamentals. ಅದು ಮಾತ್ರ ಬಿಡಬಾರ್ದು. Don't blame the system and all that. If your children come and ask you to teach arithmetic at 8th standard, are you able in a manner that I am teaching? That is, don't lose that skill. And it doesn't require grey cells. It doesn't require. Once again, now you come again, explain to me repo and the opposite of it. Briefly, just consult your notes.
Yeah. So the repo rate is like basically the treasury bills issued by the RBI. So banks can buy treasury bills from the RBI. So basically to when they have extra money and all that, the CDR is very high than needed. So they can buy treasury bills from the RBI, and with an option of RBI they can sell it. RBI will buy it back the treasury bills at a later date. So at that time the RBI will give for a certain price. So the difference in price expressed as a percentage on the buying price is called as the repo rate. It's called as the repo rate. Now the reverse repo rate is now the banks have the treasury bills. Now let's say when RBI wants to increase the money situation, money supply, RBI offers to buy the treasury bills from the banks with an option to the banks of buying again the treasury bills at a later date, repurchase it at a later date at a lower price.
The difference is a gain.
Difference is a gain for the bank.
So that's an attraction for the banks
to get money from money, and then maybe.
The second one is therefore called reverse repo. You will find these two words in economic times.
Often nowadays.
Yeah, reverse.
No, simultaneously when the RBI announces a repo rate, for example, you just watch the papers in very few, hardly 1 week, it's due, the credit policy is due. Any day it will come during this week. Repo rate, simultaneously the RBI announces the reverse repo rate. And reverse repo rate is usually higher than the repo rate, because the gain for the investor must be higher.
Okay.
Did you understand? Do you think this is relevant as a subject?
Yes.
Yes. Correct me. Finance is not only understanding balance sheets.
Yes.
Little macro, little micro, both. At the end of it, you should be financially literate. So let's not confine ourselves to a BCom syllabus. It's also necessary, but not adequate at all for us. If somebody talks about it in a group, you should at least nod your head and acknowledge. Okay, at this stage I want to ask you, is it relevant? Two, is it interesting? Answer.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Both are
Yes.
Yes. Okay, no objection, sir. You regulate me because it's a very vast word. I may get lost while speaking, so kindly regulate me. And it is a one-on-one conversation among equals, so it is not a teacher-student relationship. I have some information I am come here to share. You should pick up whether it is relevant because you have spent a very precious Sunday morning. I am conscious of it and I feel responsible for it.
Sir, one question.
Yes, sir.
Regarding this inflation, you said like inflation, whenever inflation comes, like when what bank does is to get that all this deposit back, deposits will be there, so money will be more in the bank. So it will reduce the interest rate on the deposit, so that if I am the depositor, I will take that money and then invest in something. What if, like, suppose vegetable prices are higher than the supply is less, so vegetable prices are higher, so I am losing the deposit also here. I am losing the deposit rate, interest rate on the deposit because they reduced it, so I have to take back that amount. It's day-to-day consumption, like day-to-day vegetables are needed.
Sir,
Consumer.
your example is wrong.
No, that
I
is
said
something-
inflation rate, if it is high, it is because of too much of money supply.
Okay.
Does it mean therefore the banks will reduce interest rate, it will lend more for producers and services? You see, we have only been seeing one side of the picture of money supply. We have forgotten that the production and services are stagnant. Correct. The inflation rate has to come down on account of both things. First of all, money supply, and secondly, volume of production of services and goods must become high. Then only the prices will come down with even existing money supply. Many pieces are available in the malls and so on. Don't you think the prices of the commodity become low given the same money supply? And that means the banks have to lend more money for the maker, the manufacturer. In order to motivate him to borrow, he should reduce the loan rate. Interest rate on borrowing should be reduced. That he can do only if his cost of funds is low. Cost of funds means the deposit interest rate that he has to pay in order to mobilize deposits. So when he does that, many people will withdraw the money and start buying things. They will withdraw the money all right, but they start buying things even at a high price. But when more money is spent on the same goods at high prices by many people, prices will fall.
Okay. So, when Congress was there, so it was the inflation rate went very high. They took a lot of steps, but why it was?
I can only mention the
No, because
theory portion.
no.
See, economics is not independent of politics.
No, it's not politics, because bank also might have that time
See,
increased.
another important thing is, it may not be Indian politics. I didn't say Indian politics. We are a system, we are a part of an international politics. Our interest rate and inflation rate are not standalone results of Indian polity. It is the result of international economics. For example, if crude prices fall and rise, it reflects on our inflation rate and therefore on our interest rate. So no man is an island anymore in the world. So we can't look very narrowly at the causes of inflation in India within Indian geographical diaspora.
So this controlling of inflation is not only.
Partly, sir, there are no absolute answers for these questions. There are several arrows in my quiver. I shoot. Sometimes I shoot an arrow in the air I shoot the arrow in the air, it fell. I know not where. That's the quotation. It says, I shot an arrow in the air. Next line. It fell, comma, I know not where.
I know.
I-K-N-O-W, I know not where. It's poetry. It rhymes with air. I shot an arrow in the air. It fell. I know not where. I think that is how the attitude towards life also should be shaped. You should shoot arrows. It will fall. Having shot it and left it in the air, you should not trace it as to where it fell. Shooting is mandatory, but knowing where it fell is optional.
When I shoot, I should have some target or
Yes, of course. I did say in the air. It's, definitely, sir. You shot at the moon. That was your object. It fell. I don't know where. On the moon or on the earth. That's I'm shooting.
the result I don't care.
That's it. Shooting, of course. When I say I shot an arrow. Target is presumed. Target is presumed. But it fell. I know not where. That means I don't know whether it shot the target or did not.
So, one question now, all the newspapers, right, finance minister, all the companies, everybody is asking RBI to come to reduce the rate, right? They're all pushing. Which rate is that? The repo rate or repo?
Bank rate. That's it.
Repo rate, is it?
I told you bank rate means repo rate.
Repo rate.
That's the rate at which the RBI lends money.
That's the rate.
When all the industrialists are clamoring that that rate should fall, what will be the consequence? Banks' lending rate will also correspondingly fall.
So,
So their cost of borrowing will be low. And they say in India, the highest component of costs of manufacture is interest rate,
it's interesting. Yeah.
not labor. The opposite is true in foreign countries.
Yeah, their interest rate is very low.
Borrowing rate is nominal, but labor cost is highest.
So just to clarify, so that repo rate is also like, because here we define it as in the function of treasury bills. So, but their repo rate is all the bank RBI lending money is also called a repo. It's the same.
I told you two ways of supplying money. One is lending so that you will repay.
Yeah,
Another is investment.
unlike treasury.
I invest in you by selling my instrument. I am willing to repurchase.
So, but both are kind of equal.
Equal, because the supply is the same, and both can be converted into a rate.
Both can.
In the lending, you can specify the rate.
Yes, correct.
In repo, you derive the rate.
Derive the rate. Got it.
What I thought.
Yes.
Want a break? I don't need. I'm just asking you. Because now I want to stop this economics after not forgetting your CRR, which you have forgotten perhaps. I won't forget. Let's we finish with him, and then. But again, should you go all the way, or shall we just few shots of billiards and come back?
Yeah.
Do you need coffee? Or have you had your breakfast? All of you.
We have had, I don't know.
Who needs breakfast? Because first thing is armies march on their stomachs. That is, a starving army cannot march. Armies march on stomach. ಏನು ಹೇಳಿ ಸ್ಮರಣೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಏನು ಟೈಮ್ ಈಗ
11 o'clock, sir.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Come quickly.
But please don't occupy.
Come
because
quickly.
I am very much conditioned by time. He asked me to come a little early.